Hi, everyone. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, one of the hosts of the Snap.back podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Now, typically, there is banter before our typical podcast. And if you're watching this on video, you can see that it's just full screen me. If you're listening on audio, there's no other voices. There's a reason for this, because our wonderful video producer, Default Dan, politely, accidentally, but for lack of a better term, botched the entire intro. So my audio is doubled over. Just me, just my audio is doubled over like this. I saw that. Who was it? Jolly Roger actually who posted that. Needless to say, all of that banter is gone. So I'm making a judgment call and I'm replacing it with this. And we're gonna start the intro officially as of right now. Welcome on in, folks. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as It's Guest Gaming, and as always, now with a backwards intro, and this is called a smooth segue as I take a look over and join the main podcast over with my co-host, Default Dan. Good morning, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. So making it. Was up late for some work stuff. Waking up super early for this, but I'm enjoying it. We're good.
The life of not a full-time creator, but still want to kind of be a full-time creator, but still have to do the big boy job, but still have to be a dad. So yeah, it's a nice mix for you.
Yeah.
You don't
Absolutely.
You're in the same boat as I of what is this sleep thing that you refer to? I've replaced sleep with caffeine. I don't know what you replace sleep with, but I have replaced it with caffeine and just kind of, lived off of that and then recharge on the weekend and hope for the best.
But I'm getting close to the point of just needing to start taking the daily naps. But
I took a daily nap yesterday and I have no regrets about it. I picked up my kids from school, came back. I was shot as hell. I told them, here, you know what? It's an iPad day. You guys go play. I'm going to go pass out. Passed out for an hour and a half and they were quiet and I actually slept and I felt like an old man in my cardigan and taking my daytime nap. And I have, again, no regrets about it whatsoever. There is no shame of being at any age, yet alone mid-30s, dad working full-time, needing to take a nap in the midday. Absolutely do it for the dear love of God. You'll feel so much better about yourself, considering that you don't replace your energy in other supplements. But I'm excited for this episode today. We got a lot of really big topics, really hot topics to talk about right now. Maybe not as hot as some of the stuff on Twitter, but that's because everything is hot on Twitter. Let's be honest here. But we have some really fun things. We're going to look at the tournament scene in a very different way today with some high-level analysis. We're going to take a look at the new Conquest mode, which is officially here, because we had the patch drop. And that in and of itself is a huge segment of today's conversation. We look at the card changes that came with it, including the change that we didn't know we needed the way that we got it. And then lastly, we'll wrap it with the deck of the week, but we're not doing it alone. Normally, you guys know, it's Default Dan and I, we've had, a couple dozen episodes under our belt at this point, but every now and then we like to expand and spread our wings. And with all of the talk about the importance of Conquest mode and all of the relevance of the tournament scene due to Conquest mode, right now this week, it made a lot of sense for us to kind of reach out and bring on somebody who knows the tournament scene inside and out, who has success in the tournament scene inside and out, one of the artists when it comes to knowing how to gamble those 10 cubes over the span of a match. So we reached out to our good friend, and we're going to make sure that we teach this throughout the course of the episode. And everybody, you can say it with us, okay? There's a flipped R and it ends in AY. So we're going to transition here and welcome on in Braude. Braude, welcome. Welcome, good sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. Don't be too enthusiastic, though. It's okay. You've had more time under your belt over in the EU to wake up. So we're
technically I'm in Asia.
To talk about it. So you're in Asia?
Geographically.
Theoretically? Yeah, geographically, sure. A little further over. Yeah. We're trying to centralize it to make it easier because people think Asia, they just think China. And I know you're not in China. So we're gonna shift you over a bit. Yeah, Israel, right. So
we're participating in the Euro, so yeah. in all the
It's
Europe
true.
stuff.
So we appreciate you taking a couple more minutes to sit down and chat with us about the tournament scene and everything that's happened this week, because this has been an absolutely chaotic week for people absorbing Marvel Snap differently. You know, we have all of the changes that dropped, some that affected immediately the ladder scene, and brand new game modes that we need to roll on it out here. So let's talk a little bit. First off, I would like you to introduce yourself to our community for those who may not know who you are, and we'll dive right into your experience over this past weekend.
So I am Braude. I play Marvel Snap for like 10 months almost. A late beta. I'm very active on the Discord and all the Twitch chats. Maybe other people know me from. I used to be Braude one. But, I also have the Twitter account that more people probably know, Marvel Snap Bugle. I run it. I started streaming like a month and a half ago. And I also organized the tournament list on the Snap.fan Discord that is followed by like 40 other Discords as well.
Nice.
And I play in many tournaments, and I won a couple.
I think many tournaments is an understatement, though, to be honest here. I mean, I don't remember ever seeing you play in ladder ever. Every time I've tuned into a stream, competing in 3 tournaments today, competing in 2 tournaments, playing a tournament right now, Snap Clash, I'm on in here, Snap Battle Arena, kicking ass. Like, do you even play ladder? I'm assuming, I'm hoping, but I've never seen you play ladder on stream.
But yeah, mostly for missions, but yeah.
He gets infinite early and then he just has fun, right?
I had to climb from 73 this season.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the free infinite.
The infinite.
Yeah, I had to climb. Took like 100 games or something.
Oh my gosh, that must be so hard for you. My God. So disappointed. And I apologize for the experience you had to endure of actually playing ladder. How dare you?
Actually, remember in the first launch season, I think I finished in like 350 or 450. And I didn't know that, but after the season ended, they released like the top 10 ranked people at the highest rank, and I was like 3 ranks below the 10th person. And if I knew, I would have like found so much more. And the next season afterwards, I tried again, and like I reached, but it was so much harder because people there. And then the next season, I reached super high, but I didn't publish it that time because the time I was sure I actually made it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, speaking of that, once they bring back the infinite leaderboard, so we're gonna be talking about Conquest in just a little bit, and kind of what that means. But yeah, I feel like right now, you know, for me, when I hit infinite, I'm just messing around, like you kind of mentioned with you know, daily missions, doing those. But outside of that, there's just like no push or drive. I mean, we've got like Code Deco and some of those guys getting to like rank 1,000. I'm just like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, it's just, to me, that's boring, because at some point you're just facing bots. So hopefully, you know, Conquest fills some of that void, and you know, maybe at some point, if there's a leaderboard, that'll give you a little bit more of a drive to do something once you're infinite. But yeah, once they quit posting those lists and kind of putting it out there, it just means that you had to do it yourself, you know, if you wanted to. And I don't know. It's not
I
worth
feel
the
like
time.
right now, from the perspective of someone that's not infinite consistently, it's nice to have something to obviously to try to strive towards, to get better, and, you know, constantly push and push and push. But at the same time, with now the time sweatiness that Conquest mode is going to be asking for, especially come the end of the month, it's a pretty heavy investment of extra time on top of things. So you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, because you get overall better rewards, in my opinion, on ladder, as long as you can complete the infinite scale. Now, how long that takes you, you're looking at your time versus your reward. Yeah. On the other end of things, on the Conquest side, you know, there's a lot of great rewards there, but they're just different because of the style of time commitment as well. So, you know, let's talk about let's first kick into, I want to talk to you, Braude, about, this past weekend and the deck selection that caught everybody's eye. The fact that you've got a big, giant, mega competition, any and every possible deck that you could bring in. And you brought in what we'll now refer to as Old Galactus as his final salutation, or projected, I should say, at the time, because we didn't know. We legitimately didn't know if it was going to be his last weekend, but we knew the patch was coming. And we assumed he would finally be changed, which he did. But you brought in a Galactus Destroyer deck. Why did you decide that this was going to be the deck that could actually take down a tournament? And talk us a little bit about that experience of navigating this version of that Galactus deck in the tournament scene.
Actually, I have I'll share it. I have a group that I help with theorycraft and practice a bit together. A couple of known players like KM Best and Lambi Series and W, Torikun, some others. So we chat there in theorycraft.
Secrets out. They're all in coercion.
KM Best talk about it on his stream, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, I know.
So I actually I was on the start of the for me the tournament started at 7 p.m. So for me on the morning of the tournament I wrote in the chat I have no clue what to play. What should I play? And I started the most common one, the most obvious choice that most people bought was Iowa Lockjaw. It was the most common deck. And I said maybe Bounce or Iowa Lockdown. That was also a possibility, but it was nerfed in the ODA. And then I said maybe Galactus as well. And I thought the Equinox won the 2 weeks before it with a spicy bounce list, I would call it. It had a Skrull and Iron Man and Invisible Woman when it was much more when Way was much more common. She won a tournament. So I thought about that, and then I even suggested Galactus, but not seriously. And then I thought about what's best to bring to the Hive Lockjaw mirror, and Iceman is probably the thing that's chosen just to hit their Lockjaw or Jubilee or stuff like that. But yeah, and ended up that's what beats it, and that's they said Galactus. So I said I'll bring Galactus, fine. And then the thing is that Galactus, the biggest counter to Galactus that used to be was Iowa Lockdown. And I figured that after they nerfed Spider-Man, that since most people are very reactionary like that almost nobody would bring Lockdown, and I was correct. So I just went in all. I assume that I'm not getting countered, and I'm just Galactusing people, and I'll be bigger from them because they are not built for Galactus, which was the correct read on the meta.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I think
the most common one, Iowa Lockjaw and Bounce. If you Galactus them, they immediately lose, most other decks as well. And nobody had the most counter that there was somebody bought an Arrow or Magneto. If that's the most something that can stop me Galactus from going off. But
yeah. And keeping in mind that the old Galactus, just to kind of throw it out there, right? Because now we're getting used to the new Galactus. The old Galactus did not care if you were winning the lane or not. As long as he was the only card, it still blew up the lane. So we'll talk about Galactus in a minute specifically around some of the changes. But again, if you're listening in, this was pre-Galactus change. So all he had to be is in a lane by himself, and he triggered.
Yeah, and this version of the deck, for those who aren't looking on the video podcast on YouTube, he brought in what he labeled as the Final G, which I just think is a great name, by the way. It's silly, but it's a great name for the deck. Yondu, Daredevil, Electro, Wave, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Doc Ock, Null, Galactus, America Chavez, Destroyer, and Death. And I think there was something very key in there that I want to re-shout back out again, which is understanding the reactionary nature of the meta. And I think that that's going to be something that is going to be very prominent for people to understand as we head into Conquest mode and future tournaments, which is seeing, hey, this change happened in an OTA or this change happened in a patch, which is going to either incentivize certain play styles or deter certain play styles from happening at that specific point in the game. And the recognition that Spider-Man had been nerfed and been brought up to a 5/4 the week prior, was a very, very accurate understanding of the meta to say, okay, high evo lockjaw, you know, we all knew there's 23% or something crazy scene percentage on high evolutionary in general right now. And even if you do see it, there's two versions of it. It's lockjaw or it's lockdown. And understanding that lockdown won't show up as much means that you read the meta perfectly. And that's exactly, and even still to this day, that is exactly what we're seeing in the numbers on Snap.fan too. We're seeing that it's all about lockjaw and way less about lockdown. Now it's starting to swing a little bit differently again as people are refamiliarizing themselves with the new version of Spider-Man and understanding how to move around it now at a 5 cost. But this Galactus deck, I guess my question first off on it is, with the new version of Galactus, does this deck still hold water?
I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure like turn 4 Galactus, if you wave, will probably still work because usually like 7 will be enough to go off. But turn 5, usually you a lot of time play into a lane that you are like losing because you have less power when Galactus goes off, but after it will go off, you'll win with less than null. So probably does like impact it a lot because you are less likely to get Galactus to go off.
And I can tell you, like, going off of this, because I've played a lot of Galactus in Conquest, just testing it and messing with it. This version, slightly different versions as well. It's a lot harder. It's a lot harder than it used to be because right this second, especially in Conquest, we're seeing a lot of the high Evo Lockjaw decks. We're seeing a lot of the bounce decks. And the whole factor now that Galactus has to be bigger is actually a little harder than you think because of the wave piece. So it's still possible. I've still got several tickets through using the deck, but it's definitely a lot harder than it used to be because once you wave on 4 now, they have a 50-50 shot, right? They're going to try to guess where you're putting Galactus. And I've noticed as soon as you start to play the pieces of Galactus, as soon as you play the Daredevil, as soon as you play Electro, whatever it is, they start putting cards in all the lanes. So then you start seeing Lockjaw. Like as soon as you play Yondu in location 1, they quit playing in location 1. They start to put cards in location 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden you're now fighting over one location because they've already pretty much taken care of. You've taken care of one lane, they've taken care of another. So they kind of already know exactly where your Galactus is going to go because of the fact that they've already put 4 power. And it feels very bad to throw your Galactus into a lane that already has 4 power, knowing that they've gotten priority and they're able to flip their card first. So it's very possible, but it's definitely one of those things that because they can already start to contest the lane and make sure that your Galactus won't trigger, it's become a little more difficult than it used to be.
Yeah, I think people might need to go back to Goblin Galactus like it was in the start before people figure out the better ones. Maybe that will solve it, but I'm not sure.
Goblin helps a lot.
It was the first thing I did. It was the first thing I did. I immediately went back to variations on Goblin Galactus, but now with this whole needing to lead tactic, I still believe the value of a Negasonic Teenage Warhead shot up tremendously because you have so many cheeky ways to re-clear your own lane as well as prevent people on the final turn. If you do ramp it up and get Galactus out on 5, you have priority going into 6 almost every single time, unless if there's a mirror match and they're playing some weird combo with also Nimrod and Wolverine and all these friends, right? It is so easy to have that priority and then just, okay, I'm going to drop down something and Cosmo and Negasonic Teenage Warhead on 6, and no matter what you do, you're not undoing anything. Like, it's a really fun deck because now Galactus, I think this is the biggest thing that you were alluding to, Default Dan, was he's harder. But that's because I think right now people haven't changed their mind on what Galactus is doing. You know, they have to rethink Galactus entirely. The strategy of how you get to turn 5 and the different avenues on turn 6. I mean, it's a completely different deck. I mean, I was running a hybrid that was running the Shuri Nimrod and Goblin package but then also had Sentry, Viper, and Iron Fist to be able to move cards around and re-clear lanes and send over the voids and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. Like I have never enjoyed playing Galactus up until this past week. And now I'm theory crafting so many other versions of him because I want to understand him better before more people start to realize how good he is, because it opens up the question, Braude, do you think that the change to not just your deck that you kicked absolute ass with, but just Galactus in general for any scene, do you think this was a buff, a nerf, or other?
Yeah, currently it looks like a nerf until, I don't know, if somebody figures out like a good Galactus deck that is competitive. It looks like right now it seems like to be dead in the tournament scenes, but I don't know. Maybe next tournament someone will come in with the spicy Galactus list again and wreak havoc.
Yeah, I would kind of like somewhat agree on that. The problem is it's a buff, so it's all three. It's kind of what it ends up being, right? So it's a buff in the fact that if you're playing against people that don't know how to play against Galactus, it's free wins. They don't put enough power in lanes, and you can just destroy people with it. I've gotten a lot of easy wins because of that. Actually had a clip the other day where I was playing against a Surfer deck, and so turn 5 I played Wave, and I just played Galactus on turn 6 because they left the lane open. So like they can't do anything, outside of Maximus maybe, and they usually don't throw that into a lane. So like the thing about Galactus now is he's a thinking card. He used to be the no-brainer. You play this line, and if you don't hit this line, you retreat, right? And it was really easy to either lose 1 cube or potentially win 2 cubes. You didn't get a lot of 8-cubers because people saw it coming. They left on turn 5, so you got your 2 cubes. But I think now with the change, it's a nerf because of the fact that it's harder to play. I think it's a buff because you can do some incredible plays if you know what you're doing. Again, putting a goblin. So if you get the Electro line, you do Electro and the Goblin into Galactus. Like a lot of people can't fight that. But it's also like kind of a stalemate because those easy decks to run are no longer there. So like Braude is saying, like somebody has to come up with a deck that's consistent, because I think that's the problem with it right now, is if they can see it coming, we go back to the whole days that we used to talk about Galactus of, oh, you see it coming, you just play your arrow. You saw it coming, you just played your debris. And then as arrow got nerfed, as all these cards that were kind of his answers started to not see play, he got super strong. And I think right now it's kind of one of those things where we're back to that world of he's super easy to see, but if they're not prepared, it's an easy win. And I think that we have to find that deck that doesn't rely on Galactus that can still beat people, but have Galactus to where they have to continue to respect him coming down, where they're having to spread their power over multiple locations, or they're having to play cards like debris that they maybe don't want to play in their deck, like in a Surfer deck, right? It's a 3, it works with them, but it takes away 2 spots. So like I think it's kind of that balance, and once somebody finds that out, I think he becomes competitive again, just because of where the meta is right now. Bounce and High Evo are not the best matchups against him at the moment, with the old school play of Galactus. I think a new school play can fix that, but right now, Bounce can shut you down on all your lanes pretty quickly.
I think that's going to be up to Braude at this point, because he's now been dubbed this Galactus master since he's taken down, a big tournament with Galactus of like, okay, let's see what you cook up over the next couple of weeks, for future tournaments like the Snap.fan Open next Saturday. So a little over a week from now, and we'll have that link in our descriptions. Say again?
He can't play.
I can't play.
He'll be at a Creator Clash. So he's got to take
that's fine.
He's got to take Galactus to Creator Clash and just win over there with
it. which would be so amazing, not gonna lie.
In person,
just to take out with an old Galactus, and then the following weekends, new Galactus again. Like I applaud the idea at making that happen, and I hope that goes to a degree.
I feel that in battle mode, that like once the The thing is, once the opponent knows what you're playing, like Galactus now is so much easier to counter in the way that you don't need like you used to need to have. If you don't have Cosmo or Arrow, you're dead. But now you just need to have like if I know that I can put power in the location, I can counter it. Doesn't matter what deck I'm playing. So like I don't know like if there even exists like a consistent enough deck, because once you're locked in, you're locked in. So if the deck beats you, there's nothing to do. Like that's what I knew. Like I said, I don't care. In this tournament, it was open deck list. I don't care that in order to have Galactus, once they're locked in with me and they don't have a counter, I'm just like they've lost in the when we queued in pretty much.
I think if there was like a 2-drop goblin, I think you could maybe make it work consistently. Right now the problem is like Hobgoblin's fine, and again Electro and a Hobgoblin, but if there was like a 2-drop right before Electro that like really ruined a lane for them, but left your lane open, I think there's a potential that he could come back around. But again, I don't expect that to come anytime soon. So
if all Shuri still existed, Shuri was actually my most played card. Like, if all Shuri, you could Shuri the Goblin or Shuri Galactus, that would have worked probably. But now that she has to be in the same location, unless you Iron Fist or something.
I mean, technically, what Guess was doing was you play Iron Fist with Shuri. So you put Shuri in a location, knock her out of the location, put Goblin into the location, he'll get the buff, and then you play Galactus. So there you go. Take that to Creator Clash. Make him salty.
For Iron Fist Shuri, Hobgoblin Galactus, I don't think is consistent enough.
But Negasonic Teenage Warhead into Shuri, you got to have a couple of lines, and then I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out the new Galactus.
But if they don't figure your Negasonic out, your Galactus won't go off. No. What? Like
no, you
play
your Shuri on
into
top of the Negasonic. So it's a priority match of, do you need to move it over because of Iron Fist, or do you need to kill it because of priority, and then you just play your Shuri right on top of it. So you're locking down a lane temporarily, or you're benefiting it by reopening it back up a second way. There's a couple of different ways. I'm still working on a deck because I want to create a competitive deck with Galactus. That's a whole new version that has 3 lines to Vic, but I don't know what it is yet. I'm close. I've gotten cheeky, but I have one more idea based on the current meta, but I just don't know if I'm going to be able to figure it out to be consistent or not. But we'll come back to that maybe next week. I do want to ask though, when it comes to the tournament scene, like you said, we've got the Snap.fan Open next weekend. You got Creator Clash, at the same time. We've got all of these, other tournaments that are running, like the Snap Battle Arena. You've got, Wednesday night snaps. We see different, Snap Clash. You've got on the dailies, especially. You see more and more creators are bringing up their own tournaments. I know KM Best has brought one up. We all were in the Hannah's Cat Cafe one recently, and there's more and more constantly popping up. As someone who is incredibly active in the tournament scene, as you said earlier in your intro, you have your own list of all the different tournaments going on at different times. How do you feel about the state of the tournament scene for Marvel Snap right now compared to where we were when the very first one first launched off forever ago with the release of Battle Mode? And the reason I ask this at this time is because I'd like to think, keyword, especially now with the most recent, we'll call it semi-advertisement pinnacle of Twitch rivals, I'd like to think that we've been on a very upward trend personally. I just don't know if it's a steep incline or a very shallow incline compared to where some of us, like yourself and all 3 of us actually, would like the tournament scene to grow to. Do you think that the state of the tournament scene is moving fast enough for us to say esports is actually on the horizon?
I hope so. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how it grow up in other games, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't know how it happened in Hearthstone or any
someone here is going to compare it for us, because I'm pretty sure he
I can tell you.
Loves to advertise pieces of information about his experience.
So actually, it started I remember on the first month there was so few people, and then after actually I even asked, and there's a Rush GG, they run tournament 6 days a week. And I even asked him, the TO, and he said that after I joined, 2 weeks, I joined 2 weeks after it started, and then it's the player amount almost doubled, he said, after I joined. probably because of my list, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, like at the start it was increasing, but then there was a time where it started like the top level players were always the same and they were always like good players,
Yeah.
but the total amount of players was actually decreasing. I think the highest count battle, like the first Snap.fan Open, I think had like over 300 people, and
Yeah.
then it decreased. But hopefully now with Conquest and stuff, it will go back up again. Actually, it
Yeah.
also depends. Like I don't know how Conquest is like comparable, because Conquest is like closed list and you have no clue who you're playing against. And like in tournaments, even in some tournaments they are closed now, but like it's all it's all the same top players, so you still know who you're playing against, and you know like what they like to play, and you try to counter them like that and stuff like that. Like you know that player is a Sarah main, that player is a Galactus main, that player is a Thanos main, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Well, that's what I've found interesting with the tournament scene is like, you know, to your point that when we started with the Snap.fan Open, we had huge numbers, and every month we still get over 100 people easy playing in the big opens, right? We get close to 200 that actually register, check in, all of that. But I mean, definitely when we look at Wednesday Night Snap, the numbers are, you know, around 40 people, 50 people. We get about 100 people that sign up, but then we get about 40 to 50 that actually play. And then, of course, as the night goes, people get 2 losses and they bounce out. But it is very interesting with this tournament scene because you have 2 styles of tournaments. You have Battle Arena, you have Snap Clash, or the Snap Clash Opens, the daily Snap Clash stuff, the Snap.fan Opens, right, that are open. Anybody can join, just jump in there, play some matches. So you get names that maybe you don't see all the time. You know, you have your invite type stuff. And I would say up until recently, like the invite only was creators. It was, all right, who's got, you know, 200 plus people watching them on Twitch, right? And it started that way. And then it kind of started to change and mold. And I know like this time around, looking at Creator Clash, you're seeing more of the tournament driven people like Braude. And I know that you're starting to stream and stuff like that too. But, you know, we're definitely starting to, you know, see this same 10 names that you mentioned, right? Like I know on Snap.fan's tournaments, like we see a lot of the same names every week in the top X, you know, people. And so I do find it interesting to kind of see that we are starting the pro circuit almost in there without it actually being an official thing yet. But you are starting to see here's your 10 people, here's your 20 people to look out for. And if the esports starts to, you know, really form, I mean, those are going to be the people that these companies, these sponsors or whatever are going after, like we saw with and I'm blanking on the name. Who is our first paid oh man, I will track it down in a second.
Finish the
somebody
thought. First paid what?
The person that's being
thank you.
sponsored. The guy who's being sponsored.
Alliance Lowell?
Yeah, there you go. Lowell. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, he's like the biggest
esports group.
Yeah, he's like the biggest first name to like be out there of like, hey, they're signed up, they're with esports, they're doing this thing. So I mean, there's at least a sponsor out there that's backing a team at some level, right? So,
yeah, it's the beginning of esports. You know, now that we're going to see some of these pre-existing esports teams making divisions dedicated to Marvel Snap, because there is a competitive scene. And, you know, who knows, maybe we need to start making our own, you know, for esports teams that we all start to compete against. You know, apparently there's a hidden one already that Braude's in with, you know, K and Best and Lammy and all of that, you know, so
that's
maybe
a
they just
competitive
give
team.
themselves it's a bunch of guys who just know what the hell they're doing.
Well, there has to be
you've
two
got to label
things.
yourself.
Yeah, well, there has to be 2 things for esports to really take off. One, there has to be enough tournaments for somebody to be like, all right, it makes sense for me to pay you to do whatever, so that you're wearing my brand or whatever, and people are seeing you this often, right? So like right now, I think the problem is, you know, we have a lot of tournaments, but we don't necessarily have a lot of tournaments that are going to feature you, right? So like when you think of whether it's first person shooter stuff with Fortnite and things like that, Call of Duty, all of those, right? They have the big tournaments. Everybody comes in, you're wearing your jerseys, which has all your branding on it. It's a huge deal, and tournaments are paying out tons of money, right? And part of that potentially goes back to some of the owners of these teams. So there's kind of that, and we don't have that yet. We have the tournaments. We have tournaments all the time, but we don't have the huge mega whatever tournament that's going to fully create these teams yet. And I think that Snap Clash, this upcoming one, is a start to that. I don't know if you saw it, guess, but I mean, $5,000 as a prize pool is pretty insane for a tournament. Now, again, it's an invite only situation compared to like an open tournament. So it's not like the general public can make it into that.
Already a $1,000 tournament. Almost that it had 4 qualifiers that each qualifier the 2 people go in, then it was a final 8.
Yeah. So I mean,
almost there.
And we're seeing those numbers, right? Like you mentioned, that tournament had $1,000. I mean, the Snap.fan Open has $600 last month and $600 again this month. So I mean, there's definitely some money flying around. But when you think of like esports, and if you look at some of the events there, I mean, it's like $100,000, right? to first place. It's like huge money. And hopefully Snap gets there, but we definitely need a spectator mode. We need a few other things, some support from Second Dinner to really help push some of that stuff. But definitely the EU's doing some crazy stuff with their in-person tournaments and things like that. And hopefully, maybe SnapCon, I mean, not spoiling anything yet, but hopefully that tournament will be, a huge thing and something that, people want to participate in and be there. But yeah, I'm excited for what the scene's doing, but I think we're close. I think we're close to getting that big esports whatever, but I think it's still going to take another month or two. And I think Conquest is going to help just with the fact that it's pushing battle mode, and there's still a lot of people that are scared or they're not confident enough to play battle mode, and they're still playing, ladder matches.
I really feel that battle.
No, go ahead.
Battle mode is so much deeper than people give it credit. Like, you can win bad matchups on player diff when snapping and retreating and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and ladder is just like you queue into, you just have a bad location and stuff like that, and or even on the other or even when times the meta was in the Shuri and Thanos levels, you saw the same people. Like, everybody played the same deck, and you still saw the same people reach the top because they just knew how to player diff the RNG and the snapping and retreating and stuff like that.
Yeah, looking at 3 levels deep on from a battle mode, because you have multiple opportunities to get to know the player also over several different rounds, understanding not just their deck on a first impression and try to guess it right off the bat like you do on ladder. It's one and done. In battle mode, it's very easy to lose 4 cubes on your first battle and then win either way still, because you already know, okay, I now know that you're playing a high Evo deck. I have this counter and this counter ready. Let me save them for the right moments, and then you can make a slow comeback. And we see it happen in tournaments all the time, is that you get to know your opponent and you get to know your opponent's deck. You always try to keep a couple, aces in the hole every now and then. But, I had that last night. I was down 6. And I kept pocketing my Killmonger for later on. And then all of a sudden, sure enough, we're getting towards the very end. It's round 7. And they continue to play that Nebula down. And they got it down on turn 1. And I just let it happen, let it grow to the final turn, knock it out. They had never seen the Killmonger. And I took the full victory at the end of the night. That's the kind of stuff that you need to learn and think about with battle mode / conquest / tournaments. So I use that as a transitional piece for looking into conquest mode, which released on Tuesday. And I must sidebar say, I'm very happy it rolled out pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
We didn't see any major downtimes,
AWS
outside of AWS going down. in general.
Yeah, but that wasn't Snap. But even still,
know.
that small hiccup was not Snap. And we still had content and we still had ways to enjoy the game. But that small downtime wasn't a Marvel Snap crash. That was system-wide with Amazon, which is the cloud service that Snap Secondary uses to navigate the game and operate the game. But as you know, for both of you, because both of you are very intelligent in the aspect of, you know, running battle mode mechanics, I'll start with you, Braude. Now that Conquest mode is here, first off, what has your experience been like overall? And secondly, how do you feel Conquest mode relates to the tournament scene specifically?
I'll start with the tournament first. I'll say that there's a difference because most of the big tournaments are open list and Conquest is like a closed list. So like you can hide aces and stuff like that and win like surprise 8 cubes that you can't do in open list. Like you hide a Zola or a Heimdall or something like that in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
I even said it like I even stuff like you sometimes like that's a simple example is you should never retreat like if the cubes don't double, but like a simple example is there's like a mindscape on the board on turn 5 and you're clearly losing the game. You can retreat on 5 just to not give them to show them your hand, like if you have the Heimdall there or something like that. That's like which you shouldn't do in a regular game, not to retreat on when it doesn't double or stuff like that. But like you can win or lose like surprises that don't happen in open tournament lists.
Yeah.
But I do think like I feel like it's actually like some people like try to in Conquest do it's called communism in Conquest or whatever it is. Like both snap on turn 1 and whoever wins round 1 just the other concedes.
I hate that. It's so like the one thing that. So I'll start with I love Conquest. The one thing I hate about Conquest right now is that got out there. Somebody started posting like, yeah, just turn, you know, let's farm proving grounds. So turn 1, snap. Always snap turn 1. That way your game is at least a 4 cube or it's an 8 cube and whatever. And I truly do not enjoy it anymore because of that improving ground. Once you get to silver, people don't do that, right? So I just farmed up a bunch of silver tickets. I'm having fun up there because it's like, you know, before anybody plays anything, you're already in this huge match to where you either lose and you leave or whatever. So I get it that you can churn through matches quicker, but like to me, I just don't snap. And then I make it a 2 cube game. And then at the end, I'll retreat if I need to on turn 5 or 6 and kind of not let them do that game plan. But that is the one thing right now I do not like about Conquest of the early snaps. And I get it. It's a strategy. It's there. It's fine. People are allowed to do it. You can't change that. You can't come in and say game 1, you can't snap until turn 3. Like I've seen a lot of people complaining on Twitter and things like that saying like this shouldn't be able to happen. Second dinner fix this. Is like there's no fix to it. It's a mechanic of the game. You may have every card you need in your opening hand and you want to snap. So it's something you just have to live with right now in Proving Grounds, but it is something I truly don't like because it throws off your play pattern, I guess, within the mode, but it is what it is.
I think it just depends on your goals. Some people, just want to farm the most medals and tickets, and some people just want to practice battle mode, and you can't know which one you'll get.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't face most of the players I face. I don't know, it might be Region or MMR or whatever, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the players I face don't try, like, Proving Grounds for me is pretty sweaty. Like,
I'm going to play devil's advocate because I disagree with you on that being a bad thing for the Proving Grounds for a couple of reasons. First off, and I'm going to remove the selfish creator aspect from it because we can just test stuff. I think from a community standpoint, being able to test a deck just to see the deck mechanic and now having a location that you first learn the deck but don't need to worry about your snap mechanics first. You just can play the deck into the locations and kind of see how it goes, and there's no negativity on there. That's a positive thing for the community because, we all suggest tests, suggest decks all the time and say, here, try this. this one worked for me on ladder. I climbed 40 ranks or whatever, and it works. But they might not understand the deck fully yet. So let me just bring it into the proving grounds, try it a couple of times, see if I like the flow, if I understand how to run the deck. And then there's no downside. You didn't crash 4 ranks in ladder trying to learn a brand new deck versus, consistently know the one that you have. So there's that one positive aspect to it. The other one to it is the requirements to get some of the rewards in the conquest shop are a little insane. So flying through proving grounds ends up being much more consistent to get the rewards, to just farm up, like you said, get a win. If you get a silver ticket or not, it's fine, because the second you go into silver, you get medals from that anyway. So if you're someone that's just trying to get the unlocked card, the specialty card of that season, like the Green Goblin we have this season, if you're just trying to get that, to say that, I prefer ladder, but I want to get the specialty thing, I can do this in Conquest and it'll work. Yeah, and then I don't have to touch it, and let me go back to ladder too.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying it's healthy, but I'm saying it's an easy mechanic as to why people like it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just bring in the 2 counterpoints to that one. The first one, I agree with you 100%. I love that Battleground or Conquest is a place that you can test decks. It's our free mode that we've been asking for, our non-ranked whatever free mode. Yeah. But when somebody's snapping turn 1, like before anything's ever happened, like you're cutting my game in half, and now as a player, I either have to retreat halfway through playing my deck because I don't want the game to be over so quick, right? Because if like literally they snap, you snap, and then you lose, like now you feel a big negativity on this deck because it just lost you 8 cubes. But there wasn't a reason. It was just because they snapped turn 1 and then you didn't draw what you needed to. So there's a piece there to where when I'm talking about, it's just the people that are snapping to try to get the matches over as quick as possible for your point 1. I don't like that, because you don't get to play your deck. You get to see 3 rounds compared to, 7 or 8 that you would have been able to play around and test that deck and see, how does this really go against this Shuri deck or this high evolutionary deck, because I got 7 rounds with it. I got to see different variation plays. Whereas when they're snapping turn 1, you're snapping turn or whatever. Like that's why I don't snap turn 1 unless I know I have my decks. Yeah. So
just get into a new match.
Yeah, but like
exactly.
I don't want to have to like keep going out and then getting matched up and anyway. But the second point.
Why? That's ladder. You've been doing this shit for months.
But I want to play. I want to test. I don't know. But the second part and this is the reason why I don't like to snap. Like I agree with you. It should be free. There should be nothing wrong with getting in there. I don't think there should be any limits around that. But the part 2 that I don't like is kind of the point you were making of, you just want to get the rewards. So you're doing proving grounds, you're getting the silver tickets, so you get the couple medals, and it doesn't matter what you do. I honestly don't think that the special variant card should be super easy to get. Just like the infinite borders, the infinite card backs, there is a I don't want to say privilege because that's a wrong word, but there is a like distinction of, I have these card backs because I hit infinite. And so now I right this second, and please don't tell me the infinite border is really the reason why, because that's going to be trash in 2 months. You're going to get one eventually, maybe, and then you're going to be done. You're going to be like, all right, why do I want to put infinite border on all my avatars I'm never going to use, right? Unless you're
actually
bragging.
They should make a prestige like in Call of Duty, like you have an avatar like you finished Infinite Conquest 50 times with. And
but what I'm saying is you get it once on the one avatar, right? So like, what's the chances you're going to like, and why would it matter if I did it for 3 or 4 avatars?
No, that's what I'm saying. They need to make a system.
Yeah.
You can show on one avatar that you got 50 times with it. Like,
right now that's what I'm saying. Like 3 months from now, if they don't solve that 3 months from now, it's not going to matter. But I feel like right now, if you can just literally just grind out proving grounds to get every reward in the shop or whatever, like there's nothing making it to where it like being infinite, being gold, or any of that matters. Because I can literally, I think somebody did the math, I can literally win 50 proving ground matches and get the special card. And people are
90.
grinding that in a day or two. So I don't know. Like what's the point of going to gold unless you want the infinite border? And like I said, I think once you get one infinite border, maybe two, you're not going to fight over that every month because it's stressful. It is stressful to get those infinite tickets, let alone I can't imagine what it's going to feel like on that last week to go 4-0, be in your last match and lose, because the grind to do that was so hard. And then, you know, locations
3 in a row
mesh
is
you up.
hard.
Yeah.
3 in a row is
getting
hard.
the infinite ticket is hard, let alone getting the infinite, which it needs to be. I'm not saying it needs to be easy. I'm just saying I can't imagine the stress of going 4-0 and then losing.
I'm gonna say something that might trigger some people, but I really truly believe it. So what I think is going to happen, personally, tinfoil hat moment and all, what I think is going to end up happening is the future of. You've never seen this, have you? The future of the whole Infinity Conquest is all going to rely on this first month.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come down to content creators. Hear me out. I think that for this specific mode, because of the tournament scene and the association with Conquest and the amount of people that are pushing a competitive scene in this, I think that if they're going to have this mode stay as is, as its current requirements, if too many streamers, or if too many content creators, I should say, can get the infinite border in that final week, people are going to say it's absolutely fine, leave the system alone.
Yeah.
If you see a lot of big names go super sweaty for a week and not get the infinite border, those people will have a voice for another 3 weeks saying how much this sucked that I tried so hard for a week. I'm going to try it my second month and try again. And sweat and sweat and sweat and get no reward from it. And if that becomes what happens in this first month, then maybe second dinner will see all of the negative conversation, because we're not the end all say all as content creators, but we do have a voice and an influence, and we do help to shape some things in the community. Some people are just parrots and they repeat the opinions of others. Some people become influenced by the opinions of others, and some people just like to absorb information from others and then formulate their own opinion. And those are the people I think that we try to speak to, at least on this podcast, the most, is we want you to make your own opinion based on things that we say, but we'll also express our opinion, not with the intent of influencing you, that this is what you should think and why, like some creators do, to be completely honest. Some people create an opinion to force it upon others, and that's not what we try to do here. What I think is going to happen is it's all going to rely on how many people can advertise that they actually got it. And then I wish we would know the number, but you know, we're going to try with second dinner connections just to be like, hey, in this final week, what percentage of people out of the entire player base actually got the infinite border? Is it on par with the amount of, but that's my thing. Is it on par with the infinite expectation for ladder? Because then we have to ask second dinner, are you specifically saying that Conquest mode is a more prestigious mode because your numbers don't line up with ladder? Or do you want it to be on par with as prestigious as infinite on ladder? And I asked this to you, Braude. Do you think infinite in Conquest should be as prestigious as infinite in ladder?
I think like reaching it one time, or in general, like I think finishing it will be very hard. They also even said
once a month.
They even said that they try to match people with the same win amount. So infinite, like your fifth match would also be versus someone who's on his fifth match, or it would be like super. They said that. They said.
Did they?
I can show you the quote.
So I'm gonna wait 3 hours for somebody?
No, they said no. They said they'll try. If they can, they'll try. If they can, they say it will always be someone in the same league as you. But if they can, it will also try to be someone with the same win count as you. So like I also don't know if it's like, we still don't know if it's it's global or not. So I feel like some regions might have it harder than other regions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I also think I also think that for many content creators, it can be like a new like group of like a new content type, just showing like Series 1 and Series 2 decks that you can do in Conquest. That like it used to be like at the start of the game, everybody showed like you just play these Series 1 and 2 decks, and now like it's all the same decks. So we don't like nobody does that content anymore, but now it can also make new content for content creators. But I do think it should be prestigious, but like I personally think it will be like if the reveal number, it will be like single digits or maybe even like a fraction.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fraction.
Me too.
I think
it'll be a fraction.
I think where you're trying to hit at too, like, is originally when they released ladder, the idea that they always said was 1%, right? Like 1% is what should make it to infinite. Then it changed to like 5%. I swear at this point it's 10%. Like I know it's hard, right?
This season.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, if you look at it based around Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, how many people the last month or two are posting, and I get that that's still a fraction of the player base, but like the amount of people that are posting in these seasons, like, hey, first time ever hitting infinite, or, you know, hey, I hit infinite again, whatever it is, like there's so many posts that are hitting infinite, and I think it's fine. Like everybody wants the card backs, all of that good stuff. The change of making sure that infinite people aren't playing, you know, under infinite was a big win for this, you know, last month as well. So like I think there's this thing where they've kind of opened that up, and I don't know what that percentage is, but it definitely doesn't feel like 1%. It probably doesn't even feel like 5% at this point. But I would say the prestigiousness of Conquest is way higher than that. The fact that, like, so my very first run, I got to gold, and I got into the last match of gold and lost. And so the feeling you had with the adrenaline of the 1 win, the 2 wins, going up the ladder, and like every snap mattered, every card played mattered, which goes back to the tournament scene, right? Like it's a whole different feeling when you're in a tournament knowing that if I lose this game, I'm not going to make top 8. If I lose this match, this is going to set me up bad for my breakers, which is, again, like guest alluded to earlier, this is the feeling I got when I played the opens, the GPs, things like that for Magic, when you were playing for 12 hours a day and like every game mattered. And I think that that's what Conquest has brought to this game, which is different than the tournament because there's not actual money and things like that and prizes. You know, again, an infinite border is not really a prize, but if you can get one, that's the avatar you're going to use from now on, right? Like it's just, that's your bragging right that you're going to use. So maybe like Braude was saying, if they have some kind of prestige around it and it like has a 1 or a 2 or a 3 for every season that you've hit infinite, maybe that
every run.
Every run. Okay. Yeah. So every run you do it, and then you can like, look, I've got 100 prestige. But yeah, so like going back to the question, like I definitely think that this needs to be harder to do, but my worry is matchmaking. Like literally, I know when I'm in Proving Grounds, it takes about 45 seconds to 50 seconds to get a match. And that's where 80%, if not more, of your population is. When I got up to gold, I was waiting 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes for a match. And I know that doesn't sound like a long time, but like when you get to infinite, especially I know that first day, we're going to get a ton of people in there. But like day 4, I'm curious, like how long is it really going to take to get matched if it's not global, as well as just like in general? And if they can't find matches for you, or it's taking you 8 minutes, like when the servers crashed and I finally got back in the game, it looked like the Conquest servers were still down, but Snap was up, so you could play ladder, but you couldn't play Conquest. I literally clicked on Conquest and I waited 7 minutes, and I felt like it was an eternity waiting on getting matched. And it was down, like you weren't going to get matched. But like looking at that, I'm like, I couldn't imagine going in an infinite being, or, you know, your infinite run being like, all right, I'm ready for this. I'm jacked up, and it's taken me 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get into a match. So I think that will be the hardest part because there are no bots. And I think that will be one of the make or break for the stuff. Imagine being a streamer, being like, I'm going to stream my infinite run and having to wait 15 minutes in between each of your matchups, like being paired.
It'll
That's
happen.
Going to kill it. I know, but like
it reminds me of something that happened to me last weekend.
It's
My,
rough.
it took an hour between my semis and my finals in the stream, the entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think that tournaments
I
struggle with
also
that
wonder,
too.
like, if stream snipers will happen, like, if somebody can queue into you and just like they see your deck and they chose a deck that counters you and stuff like that, it's gonna be like,
You're gonna have to put it, like, if you're doing your infinite run, you're gonna have to put a huge delay,
queuing,
like a huge delay.
Not even at least you need to stop the queuing, just like not show yourself queuing so nobody can specifically queue into you.
Yeah, but like, all right, but your name, right? Your name on your account is Braude, right? And so if I see now I'm in infinite and it's you, it's Cozy, it's Jeff Hooglin, it's whoever, right? Like, there's gonna be so many people that recognize that name, so you're gonna have to change your name and then not show your name on screen. But like, they're gonna see your name, they're gonna go to your stream, because most likely streamers are gonna be streaming their infinite runs, and if you don't have a delay, they literally have, what is it, like 30 seconds of a delay based on just Twitch delay, and they're gonna be able to see what's in your hand, what you started with. I'm just saying, it's like probably shorter than that, but I'm just
it's like 3.
I'm just
you
saying,
chat with chat live, you know.
So, but like, even with like a 2-minute delay, if they are dragging out turns, which is some of the stuff we've checked, but like, if they're dragging out the turns waiting to put in their plays, they're like 2 turns behind. So they can know what you started with, what you still have in your hand outside of 1 or 2 cards. And so I think if you're like really trying to grind this, you can't stream it, or you have to be like on a 5-minute plus delay for it to even, which means now you can't interact with chat, which is terrible. But I'm just saying, like, that's the reality of it if you don't want to get stream sniped.
I think that's also something that, if it will be a big problem, that SD can fix by at least like having like hide the names in Conquest or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there are games that do it, so yeah, like you just don't
have
know
it be names that only reveal at the end. You know, having the name just reveal exclusively.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
and it's like a default avatar during the battle, and then it's just question marks during the battle, and then at the end when they show the results, you know, when the one like hits the other, that's when it's like reveals of, oh, you took down.
They can make good video.
You know,
they can make good content. Where you're just like, you finally win. It's like, oh man, I took down Molt or Cozy or who, you know what I mean? Like from a creator perspective, that can make even huger things, especially when you get like Lammy, right? Like, you just took down a Thanos player and all of a sudden Lammy's name comes up that you just beat, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, Lammy's the Thanos king and we just took him down, or whatever.
You'll know immediately it was Lammy, because it will be an ink Thanos deck.
fully ink. But I don't know. I mean, there will be some aspects around that'll be interesting. And like I said, there's going to be a very small population that has those infinite tickets. And so, you know, again, not just queuing, but to your point, like, seeing the same people, seeing the same decks, like, you're going to get, just like we do with the big tournament scene, you're going to start to recognize who you're going up against, and potentially what they're playing, because they're not going to play a random deck in Infinite. They're going to play the deck that they are the most comfortable with, aka Lockjaw High Evolutionary at this point, I guess, until that gets tweaked.
They say, you know, they did come forward and say that everything is playing healthy within healthy parameters right now, which I just straight up don't believe. I don't know what data they're looking at, if there's Excel sheets upside down with the wrong filter or something, but like, there's no way that high evolutionary decks are considered balanced right now.
I just think some of it is just that, like, there's the filters for the high level players and the filters for the entire population, and they might be looking at the entire population of the players, and it's like, for high level it's totally different. I think it might be that. I don't know exactly.
I would say like 50% of my conquest matches right now feel like they're high evolutionary lockjaw decks.
100%.
They said that Proving Grounds is exactly the matchmaking of ladder. So Proving Grounds, like, if you're a good player and have IMMR, you'll get other IMMR players, but if like casual, you'll get other casual players. So it is like, it's actually on some level, Silver it should be a bit easier than Proving Grounds, because the matchmaking there is wider according to what they said. So like in Proving Grounds, you get people, at least if you're like a high MMR good player, like, so Proving Grounds, they like get the other good players, but in Silver you can get like the less good players. So it's actually easier somewhat.
It's, you know.
Finish up. Go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, it's one of those things where it's interesting to see what their numbers are that they're looking at, like you mentioned, because right this second, I think, which we've talked about a lot, right? It's, streamer, content creator, whatever says this deck is the best deck, tournament win, tournament was won with this deck, whatever it may be, is what you start to see. And right this second, like the Lockjaw decks, the high Evo decks are kind of running everywhere. And it may be the same as ladder. I haven't played ladder since Conquest dropped, so I don't know what that meta even looks like at this point. So
just remember, okay, don't knock the idea that, hey, we shouldn't rely on the opinions of those who win tournaments, because he's right there.
No.
Okay? He's here for this fucking reason.
Actually,
okay?
the day after I won the tournament, I was so like the day after I won the tournament on ladder, I faced so much more Galactus than I usually do. I was so annoyed at myself. Well, it's like, why did I do that?
But that's what happens. That's what happens. The only reason it's still not happening is because they finally changed Galactus. So you got a freebie.
Yeah,
you didn't ruin the meta for all of us. You just kind of did it for like a day and a half, and that's fine. I mean, and I'm cool with that. That's cool.
But it's one of those things. Like this is in every card game, right? Like, I mean, again, back to Magic, but it's one of those things where every open, every whatever won that tournament, that's the deck that was played at every Friday Night Magic or whatever that week. So like, it's a common thing through every card game. So I don't expect it to be anything different here. But it's just one of those things where it's just like, I love that we have such a wide variety of content creators, because you have guys like, let's say Molt, who joined us the other day on the podcast, but like he loves bounds. So you're still going to get these differences of decks. It's not just like everybody playing the quote unquote top tier deck. Like you have, I mean, Cozy going out there and building some random decks that also include, some maybe unplayed series 2 or 3 cards. You've got, I mean, there's so many content creators out there, but like, everybody has their kind of specialty. So I do enjoy the fact that, we do see different stuff, but yeah, I don't know what they do. They have an OTA coming up. It's definitely going to make some changes, but it kind of comes down to the fact of what do you hit? How do you hit? And, we had a few changes that came in. So we've been talking about Galactus's change a lot, but we had 2 other cards that changed. And
This is true.
I'm curious what you guys think of that.
We'll start with Maria Hill, because I think Maria Hill makes it interesting. Yeah, that's just to keep you on your toes. Because I find it really interesting, the Maria Hill change specifically, where she is now, same stat line, but the on reveal is now add a random 1 or 2 cost card into your hand. And the notion that for 2 power, you're basically getting 4 power worth of cards. And then there's a lot of really, really strong 2-drops. And I feel like, knowing that there are also more 2-drops versus 1-drops in the game, this is a really good change that I think people are potentially sleeping on, because yes, it is a random card, but if you look at the pool of 1-cost cards and the pool of 2-cost cards, the pool of 2-cost cards has a lot less cards that have negative effects for you in comparison to the amount of 1-cost cards that could backfire on you or just straight up not help you in your board. Have either of you tested with Maria Hill yet? The new one?
Since the change?
I haven't. Yeah, actually, I read like some people complain that it's like they like it less, because it used to be like, that you can play Maria Hill and then you'll have a card to play, but now you don't know how much it will cost. But I never played much. Like, I think the last time I played like a big amount of Dino was when I was in Series 2. But yeah, my first Infinite climb was Nick Fury was a season pass, and I didn't know it back then, but it's like Nick Fury in Series 1 and 2 with Dino is like a huge, amazing combo. Like,
yeah. So I have kind of like mixed feelings on it. So when she was where she was, it was very easy to know I'm getting a 1-drop, which means I can build my deck so that my top end is a 5-drop, so that I know whatever I get, right, I can potentially play that card with them. So maybe She-Hulk is my top end, and then I have like Taskmaster or just whatever Dino as a 5-drop. Usually Maria Hill's kind of paired with Dino. But that's what made her so good, because I could play her early, get Dino plus that 1-drop, and know that I can do that on turn 6. Now that you don't know if it's a 1 or 2, it's difficult. I think the other change is if it would have just went to a 2-drop, then it like solidifies, okay, then I'm playing Quinjet, and that 2-drop is a 1-drop, right? So like I think that the fact that it could be 1 or it could be 2, and now Quinjet doesn't really affect 1-drops is kind of what they tried to solve for a little bit, because when they changed Quinjet, it made her slightly worse. Not to say she's terrible, but like slightly worse, because originally it was Quinjet into Maria Hill, and now you have a free card that you can play.
Yeah.
Whereas now with this change, I feel like they're trying to be like, okay, you can play Quinjet again, but then you draw the 1-drop, and it's like, okay, well now I have a wasted space. I mean, you probably don't, because you probably have Moon Girl and all of that, as well. But yeah, I don't know. The change is fine. To your point, Guess, like a 2-drop's better than a 1-drop. Most of the 2-drops are better than a 1-drop. But the randomness that you've opened the pool to now, just like something like Coulson, if you look at Coulson, which is your 3-drop giving you your 4 and 5, most of them go up. She goes down. I get that she goes, down to get cards, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's going to make me necessarily play her over something else. I mean, if it's between her and a Sentinel now, I'm probably going to play her, because there's a bigger upside over a Sentinel. But unless I need that repeated going in my hand.
Right,
but
of course.
Most decks I'm probably not going to put her in, unless I just need to fill that spot, like a Dino deck.
So with Maria Hill, I feel like there's a new version of kind of like what you talk about, Braude, with the Dino deck in a way that we can evolve from this. Because now if you look at the direct synergy between her and Coulson, if you get down Maria and then Coulson, you have your turn 6 filled automatically. Because no matter what, you're pulling either a 1 or a 2 cost, and then you're pulling definitely a 4 and a 5 cost. So you have 2 cards you can drop onto turn 6. Now, what they are when it comes to a randomness side is a little bit up in the air, obviously. But I think that knowing that random synergy and that hand fill for the Dino decks with Maria Hill is still incredibly strong. Yes, there's, all the Moon Girl packages you could throw in there, but I think that Maria Hill kind of leads to the idea of another version of Dino that has no 6s. No 6-cost cards, no Nick Fury even. There's maybe this other collector variation that we kind of revisit again with Dino Collector, knowing that turn 6 is always going to be filled without any wasted mana. I think we have to tweak our thoughts a little bit on Maria Hill because of the filler synergy of how it perfectly fits a curve to Agent Coulson. And that duo specifically is what I would test her with. Otherwise, I agree with the inconsistency piece of knowing that you don't know now if it's going to be a 1 or a 2 cost, and you can't guarantee that for turn 6 to fill it with a 5. But knowing that if it's Coulson's always going to give you a 4, then, maybe we look at our Quinjet piece. Maybe we look at our Zabu piece. We look at these other cost-reducing cards to build a board filler deck. Who knows? Maybe with the brand new Dazzler transition here, because now you've had
one last piece before we get to Dazzler.
Had the board fill up with her.
One last piece before we move to Dazzler. If we had a collector that was ongoing, then I think this card, and I think Coulson, I think all of that is way better. I think the problem with it right now is, you mentioned collector, and yes, collector usually goes into Dino as kind of one of your extra big hitter pieces, but like Maria Hill fights for that 2-drop, and then if you pick collector, then your 3-drop. If you have Coulson, you're playing Coulson. Like, you kind of like lose your spot to do that. So I think if you want to make Maria Hill, if you want to do the whole Agent 13, Maria Hill, Coulson, you need like this 4-drop ongoing. That's another shield agent that says ongoing, blah, blah, blah. Every card that's entered your hand outside of the game or whatever, or even your deck out from outside the game. No, because then Thanos just entered your hand from outside the game that didn't start in your deck or whatever. Like, and that was an ongoing. I think that's how you make that deck work, because then you do that on 4. You do Nick Fury on 7, or not on 7, on 5. I'm just thinking he's a 7 power on 5, and then now you've got a good 4-drop that's big enough that works with that curve, and you have all these like weird little character, cards that you've drawn. You put Quinjet in there and you make an Agents of Shield deck. Like I think, but you need that 4-drop, or you need that whatever that's an ongoing that didn't care if you drew it on turn 1 and he's still going to get a boost. I think if you build that card, Maria Hill gets a million times better. Nick Fury gets a million times better, because right now, I mean, I haven't looked at numbers, but I'm sure Nick Fury gets played like less than 1%. So I think that's how
Maria
you
Hill the number.
fix it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are all probably in that same boat, to be honest here. But am I allowed to talk about our girl Dazzler now?
Yeah.
Is
now
that okay
now
by
we'll
you?
transition to filling up the board, like you mentioned, Dazzler.
Okay. Because I love this change with Dazzler, moving her to an ongoing of +2 power for each location that's full on your side, and now has some Surfer connection as well. I love the new Dazzler. I have been testing her in not just Surfer, but a couple of board fill zoo decks. I made a ass backwards farming deck that was actually a hybrid between the two yesterday that played Snow Guard because I needed Snow Guard boosters, and we were winning like regularly. Like I was floored at how much fun this card is now, because it's opening up new deck building possibilities. What do you guys think about new Dazzler?
But you, Braude, have you used Dazzler yet, or even before?
I don't think I ever played that like on purpose. But yes, now
On
she can totally
purpose?
fit in on. If like
A location gave it to her. He's
this,
like,
this
okay.
text gave it to me, yeah, like I'll
Yeah,
drop her.
True,
Yeah,
true.
I think she now fits in Surfer. Even in Patriot is like also one deck that I really like. I think like all combination Patriot Surfer with Brood and Debris and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That clog up the board and the 3-drops. Also, maybe she can even fit in regular Patriot with Ult One somehow, but like because usually on 4 you usually also play 3-drops, so it can fit there as well.
Yeah, it
That
gives
was
you
the thing I hated about her, was you had to choose her or Khazar. Who were you going to drop?
Yeah. And I think it depends if you're trying to still fight over a lane or something like that. But yeah, I feel like she's better. She's definitely better. I feel like prior to this, she was not unplayable, but practically unplayable. Like you had to make a very specific deck for her to make her work, and there just wasn't any margin for error when it came to this.
This is
decks.
actually a nerf to Galactus, because she used to get 6 power with Galactus, and now she gets only 2 power with Galactus.
Yeah.
No, she didn't work with Galactus.
No, she worked.
Yeah, it's
Did
because
she?
every
So it shows
every
you how much
space
I
was
did it.
full.
But like,
Yeah.
She was 410 with Galactus. If you fill the Galactus lane, she was 410.
Yeah.
okay.
Because everything was full. So now it's
Does it matter, Mr. Galactus? Are you still gonna? Did you add her beforehand? Did you ever play her with Galactus
No.
prior? Exactly. So shut up. All right.
I'm
No,
sure
he said
somebody did. I'm sure
nothing's
somebody's so
Nothing
mad
has
this
changed.
patch. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere.
Yeah, Ordinary Harry is pissed off right now. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
If
We'll-
you're-
we'll
well, if
say
you're-
he is, but like,
if you were going against, I guess if you were going against Galactus, it's like they drop all this. You're like, oh yeah, bam, here's this huge Dazzler, for 4. But
How does she work with Space Throne? The Space Throne count as full? I actually don't know.
yes, it does. I had that happen yesterday. I put her in the Space Throne and turned her into a 3/8 because I had the Surfer fill.
no, so
It worked.
it's I definitely feel like this is just like they did with some of the other cards where it's like they weren't really getting played and they tried something. This isn't like Crystal, which didn't work. This I think works.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things where, because it's only dependent on each lane, so you don't have to fill everything. There's a lot of games where like a 3/4 is good enough, right? In a lane, like it's not perfect. There's definitely better cards, but and even a 3/6 is going to be enough to really do well if you're focusing in 2 lanes. So, to your point, I think the Patriot Surfer deck is probably one of the easier ones to put her in because she's a 3-drop. I think changing her to a 3 was huge because when you look at the curve of what is a 3 power, like what does the 3 energy card look like compared to a 4? I just feel like when you were looking at 4s, when she was the way she was, there just wasn't a great deck that as a 4 she fit in. As a 3, you just opened it up to Patriot, to Surfer, to just, some type of, Khazar clog deck, like whatever it may be, it opened it to where she can fit into a lot more decks. And I think the power, it's good. A 3/6 is good. And then of course, if you have Surfer, a 3/8 is amazing. Really the only thing beating that is a Maximus under Surfer. So, I think they did well with Dazzler.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think it reinvigorated the interest in her appropriately, which is what these OTAs should do. They should make you rethink about archetypes and different lines. Well, no, just like changes in general. Changes in general. The whole idea is to change the landscape, wrong term, but change the landscape of what the card does, as well as the landscape of the meta. People still forget how good Stature and Black Bolt are because they're like, oh my God, we lost 2 total power over 2 cards. I'm not touching this deck, even though it still dominates if you run it. It didn't get changed enough, in my opinion, but people stopped playing it. And then look at what happened with Venom. Everybody decided going back to destroy in some way, shape, or form because Venom got a couple extra power, and now Venom is much more prominent than it was a couple of weeks ago. These are the changes that are going to consistently need to be monitored and adjusted. And Braude, you've done a great job of that because that's why you had Galactus win a tournament, is you understood the scope of the meta. You understood that there's a higher chance in this higher competition that best decks will be played. What best decks got affected? You read that, played Galactus, no high Evo control became an issue, and you took it down. And that's going to be a huge part of understanding, trying different decks, spreading your wings. And look, you may not like Galactus, but try out new Galactus so you can learn it. You may not like Silver Surfer, but new Silver Surfer, go ahead and try it a little bit because you can in the proving grounds for no negative resource. I think Bounce is still going to be the number 1 most prominent deck overall for consistency purposes over the next couple of weeks, which is why I chose it as
High Evolution.
I think High Evo has a chance at getting adjusted after next month's numbers. Personally, that's why I'm not thinking that. Personally, I think that they come back to High Evolutionary and be like,
I think the biggest problem with Bounce is always the biggest problem with Bounce is just how common Wave is. Just like when if Wave will if Bounce will surge up, then Wave will surge up, and it will just that's like the spicy bounce, the tech bounce. That's the thing with that. Yeah, it tries to play around Wave, but if you're playing a bounce that can play around Wave, I don't think it can be a competitive deck.
I think there are ways around it, which is why I chose a bounce deck as my deck of the week this week, because I loved this list with that exact mindset in mind. Knowing that Wave is so prominent, you need to have 2 to 3 outs of decent amounts of power and be prepared to be waived. This is a list from W. He the artist formerly known as Wobolos, or however you wish to pronounce it, but now goes by W. And he posted this list up the other, I want to say 2 days ago. And I love the construction of this list for that exact mindset, that you can still survive if you get waived on 5. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it just happened. And we're going to make that the tagline of the deck. Because it is a very obscure version of Bounce, because there are a lot of strong 1-drops right now, and it's playing Electra. And I love that it's playing Electra and that it's being successful. It's Kitty Pryde, Electra, Iceman, Angela, Hitmonkey, Falcon, Mysterio, Bishop, Beast, Shang-Chi, Blue Marvel, America Chavez. And it has that spread wide ability if you get waived on 5, because you could drop the Blue Marvel, you could drop the America Chavez, or drop the Shang-Chi as your power switch over on the final turn. And it's a bounce deck that only rocks 3 1-drops, one of them automatically bouncing itself. So I think that this is an incredibly fun variation on the archetype, because there's a lot you can still, there's a couple of key synergies still built within it. Obviously, your Mysterio Bishop line, you can bounce anything with Beast, obviously, and then Falcon bringing things back up just to get another Electra down, maybe, or continue to ruin them with Iceman, which I think people are starting to remember how good Iceman is again, because everyone was like, ooh, Korg. I was even on it. Like, Korg is a better card, but Iceman now is people are playing so perfect into curves with their decks that one power adjustment is such a hand ruiner with whatever you're working with. That Iceman is huge. And then, of course, you have your protection of Shang-Chi and the consolidation and the guarantee on turn 6 with America Chavez, which is one of the big ways to get around that wave.
Yeah,
so
she also
I like
just
this
helps.
deck a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, Chavez also just helps make sure you're drawing your small stuff early. But I would say the reason why the deck works right now so well is Iceman. Playing a lot of high evolutionary and things like that, like having your hand already have your Hulk and your Infinite or whatever being trapped in your hand. Again, I play a Dracula version, so it's not as bad. But when that happens, like when Iceman comes down, it always hits one of your small cards. It always hits your Lockjaw or your, whatever to throw off your curve. And even in the Galactus decks, the Galactuses that are using the goblins, Hobgoblin, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden Iceman comes down and now your 5-drop's gone. So going back to high evolutionary, there's been many games where Iceman hits my Jane. And now I'm like, well, I was going to Lockjaw into my 0, into my Thor, into my Jane. And all of a sudden my Jane gets hit. She's a 6. And it's like, okay, well, my Lockjaw's not going to get those free 0s or whatever. So I think the deck's positioned pretty well. I think Electra is one of the like shocker cards in here, but I've talked to some of the people running Electra and they were saying that right now, a lot of the 1-drop decks that you really use Killmonger to take care of aren't there anymore. Right now, it's Nebula on 1. It's Sunspot on 1. It's back to the days where there's only one 1-drop that you care about on the board. And so having Electra be able to take care of them and not throw off your curve, not messing with, all right, do I play Killmonger or Bishop? Do I wait till turn 6 and there's no Sarah here, so we're not making stuff super cheap on turn 6, so you are kind of hedging away from the Sarah play that just like wave wrecks you. But I would agree with Braude and to the point of like, if you're playing against this deck, if you see that Kitty Pryde came down on turn 1 and you have wave, see if you can beat them a different way so that you can play wave on 5. Because if you can do that, then you are gonna beat some of these decks if they have not positioned it well with an Angela that's pretty big or whatever. Because I see a lot of people Falcon on 5, and when they do that and I've waved on 5 like with these decks, I'm just like, yeah,
that hurts.
Give me them cubes because you just lost your Kitty and all of this other stuff. So I mean, wave is still a threat to any bounce deck, but I do like what you're saying. Your Blue Marvel, your Chavez, your Shang-Chi as your potential swings on the last turn if you got waved. But I don't know, Braude, like it sounds like you're not a huge bounce fan in general.
Actually, I really like bounce. It's just that wave effects. Actually, the battle arena, the previous one was won by a bounce deck. It went undefeated. I was actually defeated once in the Swiss, like this time. It was somewhat similar. It had also Invisible Woman. I can send you the image if you want. Show it.
Yeah, it was
by
bounce is still consistently
bounce is probably one of the archetypes that can go like the tallest. It's just the problem is that they get wrecked by like wave and mostly wave and Killmonger mostly, which are pretty common. Yeah, but if you don't counter them, they can go like. But so if you can play around wave, that's still good. Also, Galactus used to wreck it, which is also what I did in the tournament. But now Galactus is dead, or I don't know, evolving or whatever. So
I think it's evolving. I don't think Galactus is dead. I think
also the Beast nerf. I think really hurt it. The Beast. They also did it with the Beast change from 2-2 to 3-4. It also wrecked the curve pretty hard. Yeah,
I really enjoyed the Beast adjustment. I'm not gonna lie, because
this one
pushed so many people to change their Beast. It's awesome.
Yeah,
this one 3 weeks ago when the Beast was 2-2. Yeah, she Equinox. She won. She actually won versus a couple of wave decks. She said that like hiding a busted Iron Man behind the Invisible Woman. It can flip a lane that people don't expect, and like all the Skrull. And she said that was like very like. Also, the good thing about like this deck or like other deck in general, like sometimes in general, it's like it's also good to play off meta in the way that like one of the decks in the that finished top 4 in my tournament was a weird like Thanos deck. Like if you don't know what you're playing against, you can just like lose by not knowing what to expect or stuff like that. And even sometimes better, you just like play like an okay deck that you're good at. It's better than playing a good deck that you don't know what you're doing with.
Yeah,
like it's just better to play to know what you're doing than play a good deck and like just do bad plays.
Yeah.
But yeah, also the value of playing an off-meta deck where you don't know, like the opponent just doesn't know what's happening. Like I don't know, like you play like even in an open list, there was a Thanos with Imdel and some other stuff. It's just like nobody, like you also finished top 8, and just like nobody knew what to expect. Again, playing against a deck.
And that's how it was at like opens. And I've said this a lot when it comes to tournaments and things like that. Like there's 3 decks categories usually at a tournament. There's the number 1 deck, whatever that is at the current meta, right? Here's the number 1 deck. If you don't play the number 1 deck, you play the deck that counters the number 1 deck, which is usually like the number 2 deck. But like whatever you're doing is number 1 deck or counter to number 1 deck, or your third category is you play the deck that you know. It's the deck that you've played months and months of practice, and you know every single thing about this deck, how to play it, every turn, exact perfect play. There's a lot of people that can win tournaments with it because they've gone up against that number 1 deck. They've gone up against that counter deck. They know that, okay, I need to play this deck a certain way because, to your point, net deckers, right, which are the people that just go and grab the list that's the number 1 deck. Like, yeah, it's the number 1 deck, but if you don't know, I need to play, like if I have Thor and Lockjaw in my hand, if I don't know that I need to play Thor first because I don't have a 0 right now to give me the chance of getting a 0, next turn with Lockjaw. So I'm not playing Lockjaw and then what do I do next turn, right? It's a lot of those things to where if you just copy a list, you may not know what the optimal play pattern is, the play line, when to play what locations to play certain cards in. And so if, I think that's, to your point, that off meta, that deck that you just know how to play may get you in top 8 a lot easier than just, oh, look at this high Evo deck that has the highest win rate on Snap.fan. Let me go copy that code and play it. So
yeah, I'll say there. It's a really overall, like, remove high evolutionary from the conversation for a second. Overall, it's a very widespread of really dominant decks because you've got bounce that doesn't fit into a Galactus line, obviously, but then Galactus doesn't fit up against a high evolutionary, but a high evolutionary doesn't necessarily fit up against, a wave, oh my god, not wave, what's the word I'm looking for, like a Sandman combo. Like everything has a really healthy dominant deck, and a lot of it is a little bit of matchmaking and having at least 2 outs on it. And because deck making has evolved so much over the last couple of weeks, just because of these tournament scenes, I think the whole landscape of the meta is changing for the better. And maybe we see an adjustment to high evolutionary in the future. Maybe we don't. Secondary's not leaning in that direction, but we'll see. We'll see how the numbers can continue. And if so, then you're going to see a lot more negative YouTube videos pop up from the creator community as well. That, okay, we're tired of this. Fix it. It happened with Galactus. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen here.
Yeah,
but
I think we need just the couple changes on OTAs next week. I'm curious what they're going to do. I'm excited to see what they're going to do next week with OTAs. And
also
then
Spider-Ham, I think.
Yeah, Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham's so
I know there
good.
was
just play a lot of
time
Infinite.
in the Korean tournaments, where Leech was super dominant. That many Korean players just bought Infinite. Just like, if you Leech me, I play Infinite.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of Infinite and
that can return
Giganta.
back. Yeah.
I think Spider-Ham is going to put the projection on now. Spider-Ham will make the top 8 in the Snap.fan Open. Projection right now. Alrighty. With that said, Braude, my friend, thank you so much for joining us today. Please let all of our kind listeners and viewers on YouTube as well know where they can find you.
I am on Twitch at Twitch TV/Braude and on Twitter at Braude Snap. And I'm also Marvel Snap Bugle if you want to follow up on all the dev updates on the game. And thank you very much for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
We're very honored that you took the time to come hang out with us and talk about the landscape of the game, Galactus, Conquest Mode, the changes. You know, we're going to have future content as well coming up on both Snap.fan and probably throughout this podcast as well about great mechanics to keep an eye out for when it comes to Conquest Mode outside of the Proving Grounds, and being able to, you know, learn how to get sweaty, because Infinite is right around the corner. So the more that we can communicate out with the community about ideas on how to make these sweatier approaches, and if we can help you with what, you know, our experiences are, we're going to gladly do so. That's why you were here today, and we're very thankful that you took the time to come and join us. So for those who do not know, on the far end, that's Default Dan, the video epic, maybe person, producer, behind the scenes, whatever you want, Snap.fan guru. In the middle, you've got Braude, and then myself. I am ItsGuestGaming. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today on the Snapback podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Thank you guys so much. Say goodbye, everybody.
All right, y'all take it easy, guys.
Maybe next time, not at the same time.
Sorry.
I said it. I literally said it in order. Default Dan and then Braude. Instructions are hard, but I appreciate you guys. You know.